Thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me from here? Okay. When I think of the different places I've had the privilege of working in different countries to live in over the years, I wanted to begin with Ohayo gozaimasu, or good day, mate, or any number of our different languages. 60 countries. Wow. So now say good morning again on the count of 3, but in your language with gusto. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good morning. Thank you for being here. You know, the early time slot here, beginning of our day. I want to thank the Association for the Advancement of Computing Education. I want to thank all of the eLearn, all the people in support of this, and thank you for the kind introduction. So, if you're probably on Twitter, of course, and I suppose each of you at least has 2 devices, maybe 3 in your possession right now. But one place that we could go during this talk, you could also be visiting a bit, is I have made, now I'm a writing instructor, and missing the apostrophe in this is just really hard on me. But if you go to this site, okay, if we just click on there, of course, will be redirected, and you can give yourself a name, and you can join, and you can, you can say what, be real positive, right? No, here we go. But it is a place for us to be able to, incorporate the different conversations. Okay, so to begin, this is an international group. I want to begin with a story. I'm on this camel, by the way. My daughter, after graduating from college, had a Fulbright in Morocco. And it was so I'm the mom who went over to visit and be with her some. And so we decided to take this short trip. Have others done similar kind of this type of trip? Okay, and so you have the Bedouin guide, and it was leading. Now, I'm a bit of an extrovert, and so I tried, visiting the whole time. And he was so busy on his cell phone, on his smartphone, constantly. And so finally, here we are in the middle of, in the Sahara Desert, under the tent, the flickering candles in the evening. And I finally got a word alone with him and said, well, what are you so busy with? And he says, well, I'm so sorry, but I was studying. Cool, I'm an educator. He said, well, what are you doing? I'm learning my 7th language. I said, oh, how? Well, via distance. He was learning Japanese on his cell phone while he was for his business. Okay, the longing to connect. Where are all of our students? What have they already used? Okay. How many people have 2 devices going right now? Got 2 devices. How many have 3? How many have 3 going? Anyone have 4? Anyone else have 4? Okay, you get the picture though. The immense connected world that we are part of. Interestingly, by the year 2020, we are supposed to have about 50 billion connected devices. 50 billion. A year ago, there were already more devices connected to the internet than there are people on the earth. Okay. In 2014, what do you suppose the average time people are spending on Facebook? Anybody care to throw out a guess? How many, let's see, how many hours, let's put it in, how many hours a month? Come on. 30. 50. Okay. Interestingly, the source that in the Pew Internet for Research and so on said about 15. I think that's kind of low. But then again, there's Twitter. And how do you suppose how many million tweets a day? How many million tweets a day? 17 million. By the way, there's 300 million tweets a day. It's on Twitter. Kind of interesting. Then if we think about the fastest growing cohort on Twitter, in what age group? The fastest growing cohort are those aged 55 to 64. Interesting. Okay, now some see this as a bit of an age of turbulence. But if we think of what Drucker said, the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, but to act with yesterday's logic. As the future connects us, what is our logic? How are we handling this? Who are we connecting with? This is a visualization from right now, 2014, of all the connections across our world. Do you see your country here? Okay. Do you see the sense of, when I think of our entire world and collaborative connections, where are the connecting hubs? How is each of us a part of these? Well, you are here. So you have already taken a deep dive into this space, a very, very deep dive. How many free apps are you using on your devices? Hundreds? Dozens? More than that? And what is the cost of our free apps? Obviously, our personal information. And in other contexts, in the different associations that I'm a part of for technical communication, we actually dig deep into those privacy, those click-throughs, all these things we agree to. But if you actually spent the kind of time to read each one in depth, you would spend about 308 hours a year. But that is where we are. And the future will continue to connect us, because I was thinking about even in the space out here, and how many things are reading our behavior. We are definitely part of the Internet of Things. Now, when I came across this cartoon, I'm kind of old, okay, so it reminded me of long ago. When I was little, and we went to the New York World's Fair in 1964. Anybody else do that? Anyone? Oh, good. Oh, my goodness. I've got comrades. Okay. Now, do you remember the GE carousel? And you'd go around and you'd see the living room and then the kitchen and the thing and everything. Do you remember this? Oh, cool. Everything was talking. Okay. Now, that was 64. My goodness. Fast forward here at 2014. Sure took a long time to get there. But I think once we're here in this Internet of Things, it's exponential. How are we leveraging in our teaching and our learning the Internet of Things, of all things connected? Okay, now, if we have all of these answers out there, all of this information, what is our role as those who are teaching and those who are assisting in the technologies in support of teaching, learning, research, outreach? Okay. Any number of people in different workshops through the years have said, well, if all that information is there, what will I teach? Okay. And we've talked about the change from sage on the stage to guide on the side. Okay. But now, with all of these answers, our role is, what are the most important signature questions in your field? What are the most important questions as part of these days together now? What are the most important questions? How will we connect? How do you currently connect with others? What is your personal learning network? Who will you meet and how might you connect? Be very intentional about connecting over the next few days. What transformational relationships will you work to build? In my research, over these last set of years, I've studied shared leadership and especially interinstitutional partnerships. And people will say, well, we need more trust, we need more trust. Bottom line is, begin with those connections and transparency. But let's think about how did we get to all of this connection? Okay? Well, you can remember back to, and we still use, behaviorist theories of learning. And then we moved, I think in terms of the writing field, it was you write a this, then a this, then a this, and you have your checklist, and you make sure you do all of those things. Well, then we said, now wait a minute, there's more up here. We need to be thinking about it and critical thinking, and we were into cognitive processing and cognition, and all of these theories of learning, and they helped us. Well then, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, then we said, well, wait a minute. There's these networks of people, and we've got all of these things that we need to connect to bring people together for the social construction of knowledge. That we work together to construct new knowledge. Well now, how many of you possibly check in on George Siemens' blogs? Okay, so you know what the last one is. It's connectivism. Right, connectivism, which is where he would say we are now. We could be thinking even beyond and say, oh, what is beyond this? But some key tenets of connectivism. Learning is a process of connecting specialized nodes and information resources. Learning may reside in non-human appliances. Nurturing and maintaining connections is imperative to facilitate learning. Think about what you're teaching, what you're working on right now. What are the connections that you are fostering? The ability to see connections between fields, ideas, and concepts is a core skill. But above all, the capacity to learn and connect is more critical than what you currently know. Because think of all of the YouTube videos and the William Resch work and just all of the different things that show how fast our knowledge changes. Okay? So how it's impossible to stay completely current. It is fully possible to have relevant, intentional connections to stay current. Okay, you referenced my different roles through the years. Okay, so I often say the 15-15-15-year plan. I served as actually if I go way back, I was an elementary teacher, then junior high, then senior high, ... fast forward, grad school. Anyway, then served as a professor about 15, then as an administrator, 15, different roles, and then the last 15, again, are right now, just in the second year of it. But when I returned as a professor, I thought, okay, who's in my network? And so at that time, LinkedIn, have you done this type of visualization? Anybody? Now, interestingly, LinkedIn has changed this one and is going to come out with a different one, ... But what was interesting for me is at that point in time, you could see all these critical networks of the people that I was working with in the IT world, because my last role was serving as a CIO. Well, then there was this network way out here that was those are my technical communication colleagues. And I knew I needed to reconnect. It was a very quick visualization to help me understand or better understand where should I be spending my time? How might I be intentional about collaboration and connections? So what is this personal learning network? I've referenced it a couple of times, and the introduction did as well. A personal learning network is a trusted network of people and resources that we connect with to ask and answer questions exchange resources, solve problems. Now, this may look pretty wild here, but you are at the center of it. And it is the resources, the people that you currently connect with. It's also those that you aspire to work with more. Okay, so we have been very intentional at the University of Minnesota as a part of a current project. These sites are under development right now, but we've, in previous draft forms, worked to help students learn from throughout their curricula. Okay, who's in my personal learning network, and how am I building it, and how am I building connections across all the different courses, the different colleges I'm attending with my different classes, and where's my professional? So the P can also be professional learning network, and how am I making those connections so I can be very intentional? And obviously, as part of my work, include these in e-portfolios. This is a personal learning network, a draft of an international a student I had from China, and he's outlined. This was his second draft, and yes, you can't read it, but you get the gist of his first one was very small, and then as he started to think, I really want to grow and learn these technologies. I really want to make sure to connect with these people and with these groups. This is one from an undergraduate who's, Key thinks she was spending many hours a week working in the wedding shop in St. Paul. Okay, so this was but it wasn't exactly connected to the other things. But as she started, this was her first draft of saying, this is what I pay attention to, and this is why. I oftentimes think those of us, and as we work with IT, if we had a better sense of PLNs, what people are intentional about, what are they looking for, and how might we mine those and better understand, therefore, what are the technologies that need to be built? What are those that need to be bought? What are those that we need to buddy and pair up? What are some that we need to blend? Here's another rendition of a personal learning network from a graduate student, in this case, who was researching open source software and the usability of open source software. So he said, I really need to reach out to the key developers in this field of what I want, the software I want to research the most. But I also need to reach out to other developers and all these other entities that you see here. And I'm going to keep track of and let people know what I'm doing daily on Twitter as well as Facebook. And at the end, as he compiled all of this, then he said, okay, I have found out a great deal about usability and usability testing of open source software. Where do I disseminate that to? And as a result of this broad dissemination, this master's level student was invited to a conference in France to keynote. I was like, really? Anyway, okay, so those connections that he made. But these happen at all different levels.
Welcome to my personal learning environment. I've been practicing network learning in my 7th grade science class. I spent some time at the beginning of the year learning how to find information online and how to pull it all together on a personal page. As you can see, there's lots of stuff here. Some things, like my Facebook account and the blocks across the top, are not for school. I organized all my schoolwork along the bottom row. Every morning, when I come to class, I visit the science agenda to see what we're doing for the day. Sometimes there are videos to watch or other work to do. Other times, I decide what I need to work on next. One day, we played a game called Pocket Tanks, and I used it to learn how to write an official scientific report. That was created on my Google Docs account and published for anyone to see. We have a lot of animals in our science class. I can create a special report to get certified to hold them, but I have to do research first. I find websites and post them to my social bookmarking account. These are some of the sites I found about the leopard gecko.
I think you get the gist. We are moving forward with our students. Just a second. make sure. There we go. If we glimpse into this future, the changes point the way toward a diverse learning ecosystem. Learning adapts to each child instead of each child trying to adapt to school. We think of all the global implications of these connections as well. As the future connects us, how do we become more connected to our learners? How might we share our personal learning networks with them? Who will be the learning agents? How will we empower our students, our colleagues, our other scholars in intentionally expanding personal learning networks? This knowledgeworks.org group has sketched out any number of pieces on the future of learning. And of course, they can paint it into either the desert or an oasis. But the critical piece is connections. What are your connections? How might you visualize them? Find the person next to you. You're going to pair up for about 3 to 5 minutes max and begin your tiny sketch. You can go to text to, these are simple mind maps. They're not 3D and things, but they're pretty quick. Choose text to mind, Coggle. Perhaps if you want to do an app, you could check Mind Layout. Okay? And I'll time you. Introduce yourself to this maybe this person is new. Choose one of these on your device and give it a few minutes. Okay? Are you ready? Find someone. Connect eyes, introduce, on your mark, get set, go. Remember to try out the app or mindmap.com. Okay, class. Take a picture. Okay, class. Okay, glass. Okay, glass. Okay, glass. Record a video. Okay. On your mark, get set, stop. Okay. Thank you for connecting so well. Okay, how many tried the text to mind map? How many tried that one? Text to mind? Okay, pretty good. How many tried the coggle? Just went to the coggle? Okay, good job. How many tried the Mindly? You want to try Mindly? Mindly didn't get, not too many people went to that. Okay, but you have a new connection. Hopefully very, very emerging, intentional, solid one. You can use these in lots of different ways, and we certainly have as I work together with my students and sketch out all the different research directions that, and so you have to be sure to share your own with your students as well. Now, this next piece here, I'm going to think, okay, what can we learn from other sectors to help us better connect? Okay, as the future connects us, how are people connecting? Now, how many have by chance read Jane McGonigal's book, Reality is Broken? Okay, so how many here work on developing and using games and gamification and all that? Okay, because I saw, there's just a ton of great sessions coming up. Okay, now interestingly, she says why games make us better and how they can change the world. Well, I'm going to say how connections make us better and how they can change the world. But let's take a minute to just look a little bit at all these games. My goodness, there's a lot of people. And we spend a lot of time in some of these. Okay, how many play Angry Birds? Okay. You can admit it. Okay, anyway, but don't be playing it right now. No, moving right along. Okay, but we're gonna play a game here together, and we're gonna do our best to get that all of us connected. Okay, so with the person that you were just working with, we're going to thumb wrestle. Does everyone know how to thumb wrestle? Basically, you grab and you wrestle, okay? Find that person. I'm gonna do, on your mark, get set, go, okay? You ready? Okay, you have to connect, you really do here. Okay, ready, on your mark, get set, go. Wow, we've got some really intense connections going here. Woo! Okay. You gotta call it. You gotta call it at this point. Okay. Now we're going to make this a little more interesting. Okay. Pairs. Pair up with another pair. Okay. Ready? Find 4 people. You might, by the way, have to stand. Okay. I think you have to stand. Okay, ready? One. You can do this. You might have to put a device down. Okay, you can stand. Ready? And you can stretch. And you find 4s, groups of 4. Okay, you can do it. You really can. You might have to move a bit. Come on, people. You can do this. You can do this. You can cluster 4 people. Okay. Are you ready? Now, come on, people in here, you have to group. 4 people over here, 4 people in the back. Okay, on your mark, get set, go. Okay, well, we're not going to try this particular one, but I believe in this group, and I believe that everyone in here can absolutely get connected. So we're all going to stand up, and we're going to connect one arm here and one arm here, and the entire room can be connected within seconds. But we do have to probably stand up. So 1, 2, 3, please stand, and let's get connected. We're going to do a massive thumb wrestling.
All right.
So you have to, hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
So let's see, and you'll have to go that way.
Oop.
We'll have to get, and you'll have to get your other hand a different direction. Everybody can find somebody.
Oh, we're thumb wrestling now. So
Okay.
there you go.
Okay, it's looking good. If you see someone who is not connected, do please help them connect at least one hand. You can double up. It could be kind of interesting. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you ready? On your mark, get set, go.
Really hard to do it.
This is real. Oh, okay, good job. All right. That's a nice size group. Congratulations, my goodness. Okay, take a deep breath. You were resilient. You got through this. Okay. Resilience is about collaboration, supporting others in pursuit of a common goal. Resilience is about connecting and connections, supporting others in pursuit of a common goal. Okay, in your mind, what's your key goal? How are you going to pursue it as part of this conference? Who will you connect? How will you connect? It's amazing what happens when you reach out to people. When I returned to serve as a professor, I kind of thought I knew what was going on in the front lines of technology and learning at the University of Minnesota, but I soon found out I was not up to date with them. So I reached out, and we did a crowdsourcing ebook. This is free, of course, but what was interesting is I thought we might get, 20, 30 people. 130 people said, yes, I've got a great story to tell and share about cultivating change in the academy through our use of teaching and learning technologies, or through our use of new technologies in our research or our outreach. In 10 weeks, we were able to develop an ebook, an open source, free. We used the Sigil platform because that way it's not bells and whistles, but you can read it on any device. It's amazing. Issue the invitation to connect. When I think of a couple weeks ago and inside higher education, they're saying, what are the key issues? So if you're thinking of, in higher education right now. Now, granted, they can be a bit US-centric, obviously, with this publication, but many of these are definitely worldwide higher ed issues. How are you going to reach out? Which issue will you connect with? Now, the Gates Foundation, has held any number of jam kind of sessions where they have invited people in, a shorter amount of time. In the one case, the 6-hour synchronous exchange. This particular one was on predictive analytics. And as I think of these previous themes, when I used text-to-mind map and stuck these in it, learning analytics is at the center. All of the different systems that we're working on, how are they helping us with predictive analytics for our students' retention and graduation, for our students' success. How are we measuring it? But moreover, I'm passionate about how are students a part of this. So anyway, in this jam session, the countries, the individuals that came out, the number of overall entities and the different types of institutions that and organizations that they represented. And they wanted predictive, I don't think it's predicative, but anyway, analytics that identify good teaching and learning strategies. They want predictive analytics that predict student outcomes, that link our students, that examine behaviors, that inform our teaching and enable early intervention. But how will this community do this? Only through connectivism, only as the future connects them, only through intentional connections. Another passion of mine, another free ebook. Okay, when I returned again as a professor, I'm very passionate about our smaller, especially our smaller liberal arts colleges, concerned about sustainability. We need all of our colleges. We need them to collaborate more. We need more connections across them. We have a great need for higher education. What's interesting is as I worked with this first data set, and this is grounded theory methodology, so you don't begin with a research question, you discover it as you work. And as I met with presidents, provosts, faculty, staff, students at these different institutions, and I went to the actual campuses. This was the initial data set, and I now have 40 institutions and different interinstitutional collaborations that I'm working with as a result. But when I identified their themes, what was most important, I discovered, my goodness, it spells the word David. Now, some could say we might be facing a Goliath-type moment and all of that, but it's a way to remember it. The D is distinction. So how are we most distinctive in the future? The A initially was affordability, but it has evolved to be analytics, what we just spoke about. The V is value. So when you think of your institution, what's the most important value? Innovation. How are we saying that? You're the heart of innovation here. And then what's the digital opportunity to help our institution be distinctive, to follow the most important analytics, to indeed have value? This was the overarching question that these sets of institutions are asking. Amid the immense change underway, how might my organization, my college, university, reinvent itself for relevance and for survival? Some specifics. At Muhlenberg in Pennsylvania, Allentown, when they looked at digital opportunity, they didn't know what direction, so they had the interinstitutional people from their board, their faculty, all the different governance structures, their staff and students, and everyone enrolled in a MOOC. They had the leader of Penn State come and visit. They talked with professionals and many of their alums, but then they put aside funding for the implementation of those recommendations. At Capital University in Ohio, okay, they said, the perfect storm is heading for us, but we'll be nowhere trying to be something we're not. We'll focus our efforts on connecting our missions with the digital tools that best support them. Autumn Keynes and Wenli Feng at the time were instructional technologists there. They started this conversation. Then they worked with the board, they worked with their faculty, they worked with students. They fostered the conversation for what is our reinvention strategy. At another institution in Pennsylvania, Susquehanna, as an IT leader, this was the CIO, Mark Huber. How do I transform how we deliver education? Each of us could be asking that question today. In my role, how do I transform. Now, in his case, he sees this project as learning what others are doing, trying it out, experimenting. But bottom line, we can't survive without collaborating. At a subsequent meeting with 40 of these institutions and with their presidents, when we talked, their bottom line, they said, is how do we collaborate? How do I maintain institutional identity but also collaborate? When we visit 10 to 11, that's where we can delve into more. But when we think about collaboration, real collaboration takes more than meetings and PowerPoints, okay? You have to focus on transforming relationships. Groups must build, this is from Peter Senge, groups must build a sense of mutuality, shared visions of what is possible, and real trust. We have to create spaces for reflection and deeper conversation. These days ahead of us are this space for reflection and deeper conversation. But bottom line, they must be anchored by a backbone organization. Ha! This one. You have a we have a backbone organization. Quick aside, a few years back in the US, the Fund for the Improvement of Post-Secondary Education had a set of grants on learning anytime, anywhere partnerships. Do you remember those? Okay, and it was very interesting because you could put in a proposal and you could say, okay, we want to develop this online learning opportunity. Okay, and people would look at what they wanted to do, but it had to be inter-organizational, inter-institutional. So people would say, I want to create X. So I need this awesome software company, I need this institution, and I need this, and they'd put them together and they'd go. Now, a colleague, Linda Bear, and I, we had the opportunity to study all 40 of these. And it was, over a set of just a few years. And what we found is we studied what are success indicators for learning anytime, anywhere partnerships. One of the key things that we learned from interviewing, of course, and working with all of the PIs, the principal investigators, we learned that those projects that had an anchored backbone organization, they had been part of a consortia together, or they were part of a collaborative group that had been previous, they were twice as likely to succeed. In fact, half or more of those that did not have this never really got off the ground. Okay? Because people who had collaborated together and shared leadership were able to move beyond, okay, I'm from Minnesota and we talk about Minnesota nice. I don't know if there's Louisiana, Louisiana nice might be true nice. No, anyway, but okay, but people, you don't get brutally honest. You have to go to the next level and to really work in order to generate new directions and knowledge together and to get to shared leadership. It doesn't just partnering ability doesn't just happen. Yes, it takes time, and it takes face-to-face interactions at events like this one, where highly skilled, dedicated resources are here to sustain and coordinate our complex networks. Oh, one more aside. You might have noticed earlier, what is our future? Well, there are some things on wearables here. There are some sessions on glass and things. Now, this is my glass team. What has happened to our collaboration? We're even more intense, okay? And so we are deploying these in multiple classes across the technical communication curriculum. At this particular juncture, when I took this picture, we were wrestling with a major connectivity issue and all trying to figure it out. Okay? But notice the gentleman on the left in this picture, okay, and the new, that interplay between machine and human. We are at that intersection before implantables, okay, and getting away from having to have a handheld device. We know that wearables are definitely a part of our future. How will we be wearing them? What additional intelligence will they give us? As a graduate student of mine, a PhD student is deploying these in one of her classes. It's very interesting. They call this a third eye. And so you simultaneously have one eye, in sort of in the ether world, and the other eye in reality simultaneously. What does that mean? How will we connect? Do these allow us to have more connections, or do they make us more distant? There's a lot to explore in the future as the future connects us. When I think of my earliest days and the privilege of using technology in teaching and learning, but long ago in the past, you had to kind of create it yourself. And it really was about a whole lot of competition. And the changes we made overall were pretty routine. And I could share lots of stories around each of these. But in the present, we have a great deal of emphasis on analytics. When you hear your institution's strategic directions, okay, and we can bring people together to create things. When we think of our future, I go back to connectivism. It is much more about connecting. It is much more about developing the competencies for shared leadership. And true transformative change, as we know from Clayton Christensen and many others, it's truly disruptive. So it's not like one of these changes is necessarily better than others. It's just that as the future connects us more and more, it will allow for much more transformative change. And rather than PLN, I put personal adaptive learning. How are we collaborating to design systems and to piece them together to adapt to each person's personal learning network? I'm going to conclude with a story. This is Lake Titicaca. Been there? People? Wow, okay. Yes, you go in person. Good. This is the highest navigable lake in our world. It is right between Peru and Bolivia in South America. Machu Picchu was on our bucket list, okay? So at the same transition time, my husband was so happy I was no longer doing administration that he said, let's go on a vacation. Anyway, okay, and so we went to Machu Picchu, and then after that continued and explored Lake Titicaca. Well, got in the night before, and it was so dark that, you didn't see anything. Opened up the windows next morning and went, wow, look at this lake. Isn't it amazing? Well, then the sun came up a little bit more. I mean, you can see that line there amid all the reeds. It's kind of like a route. I didn't quite understand it until the sun came up. And there's a whole community that lives on the reeds that have been compacted into reed islands that move with the wind. So went out, and of course, in the part of a tour to visit these and to learn about how they're built. But interestingly, at the end, everyone was connected in different ways. Amidst the immense change underway, How might my organization reinvent itself for sustainability, for relevance, and for survival? Okay. How do these islands on Lake Titicaca reinvent themselves? Interestingly, one person asked, well, what do you do if you no longer kind of want to be that particular family group? They said, we just cut and push. Okay, how does this relate to connecting? Okay, back in that research I just shared with you, Learning Anytime, Anywhere partnerships, yes, there's a time to launch, there's a time to maintain, there's a time to sustain, and there's a time to sunset. We can't do everything forever. But how do we decide as a community, even at that point, to disconnect? But bottom line, as the future connects us, who do you connect with? How will you be intentional at this meeting to connect with new people and to reconnect with existing colleagues? What are those signature, important, grand challenges kinds of questions that we're working on and that we can work on together? Reinvention begins with connecting. Now, Kevin Kelly said all these future kind of things. See, I didn't bring a list of predictions because any believable prediction will be wrong. Interestingly, he says any correct one will be unbelievable. So maybe in the next few days, be brave and courageous and make some unbelievable statements. People around you will say, I want to connect with that person's thinking. Alan Kay says the best way to predict the future is to create it. I would say the best way to predict the future is to connect it. Or maybe we could say the best way to create, or the best way to create the future is to connect it. Bottom line, as the future connects you. Thank you for this privilege. I look forward to our connections. If you want these slides, this is the URL. Thank you so much. Go forth and connect.